Okay, good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm actually logging in today from Pulaski, Tennessee, where my family is holding a family reunion. It's such a special time for a whole host of reasons, but it did not stop me from having this conversation with Mr. Jeffrey Beckham Jr., the CEO of Chicago Scholars. Jeffrey, when I think about it, so much of the rationale for the work you do is the same that I think about for family reunions, keeping us rooted and cognizant of our power so that we can have more purposeful lives. We met last year during Miami Art Week at Camelback Ventures at a Camelback Ventures event. I was trying to recall exactly what you talked about, and I couldn't, but I do know that I was just super impressed with you. And the fact that you're also an artist just blew me away. I don't know if you saw that I posted a couple of your paintings with the post about you, and I just knew I wanted to talk to you. So thank you for being here. Leaders Talk Communications. The conversations I have is to discuss with executives how they manage communications at their business or at their nonprofit so other leaders can hear from them and gain insight into how they're navigating the way they communicate with their different stakeholders, all the different people who are important to the success of your organization. I also like giving communications professionals like me a peek inside the minds of leaders so that they can serve you better, so they know how you're thinking about communications and so they can better support you. So let's just jump in.
Let's go.
Okay, so um, I want to first say I've worked closely with nonprofits as a communications consultant for about 15 years. And one of the issues that has always just kind of nagged and poked at me is the lack of long-term impact data. So if I keep digging and asking why and so what and how do you know you're actually impacting the social determinants of health, for example,
Mhm.
very few have been able to answer that question with great certainty. And as I read more about Chicago Scholars, I was intrigued by the fact that that kind of long-term impact is just naturally built into the work that you're doing. You've got alumni, and I'm going to let you tell about it, but that was one of the things that just really stood out for me about Chicago Scholars. So tell us more about that work, how you're serving the Chicago community and beyond, and share specifically what inspires you most about your role as CEO.
Awesome. Well, first, thank you for having me, Jennifer. Chicago Scholars for 30 years has worked to select, coach, and mentor academically ambitious young people from under-resourced communities. And academically ambitious typically means in our narrative about students with a GPA of about 3.0 or better. We
Mm,
work with them by providing them mentors, college counselors who are professionals in the industry that know how to navigate the pathway from high school to college. But we don't just start there. We start there and stay with them sometimes for as long as 7 years till they graduate and then, matriculate into jobs. And so our focus, our end goal is a high paying, family sustaining wage earning job for our young people. Now we've done that. And you mentioned the long term data for 30 years. And since we started really tracking that data in 2016, with our data team and using Salesforce, we've helped now 7,500 young people bring home more than $750 million in merit aid on the front end. Those young people have gone on to earn, on an average, $1.8 million more than their peers, and about 1.1 or $1.8 billion in total in aggregate over lifetime earnings. And you mentioned, you're right, like that long term longitudinal data and done that way is very difficult for a lot of nonprofits. It's,
yeah.
largely a capacity issue, and we can dive into more of that there. But your second question is, why do I love this work so much? I'm actually our scholars. I wasn't in the program. The program started in 1996. I was in high school at the time and didn't know it existed. But as the first generation, first Black male in my family to graduate from college, I really am the lived experience of so many of the scholars, right? Navigating from college to a career in healthcare, and from healthcare to tech, and tech into this work. I've kind of
Yeah.
navigated a lot of the same pitfalls that our young people do, and it's why I love doing this work so much. I see not just myself, but like so many of my friends, my peers, my family members who also struggle with this journey of trying to figure it out, and we get to do that every day.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that you have the data about the long-term impact, and as I think about that, I'm thinking about, you know, there's a multiplier effect as well for community, for generational wealth and families that goes, so far, so much further. It's really amazing. So I know that in the work that you do, you have to connect. You'd already talked about a few of them, a lot of different stakeholders you're engaging with, and that you have to speak to ensure the success of Chicago scholars. I want to know what you believe is, and I've just heard you talk about some of it actually. What's unique about the way that you're communicating or connecting with those folks that support Chicago scholars? You are, I'm sure it's much easier to talk about the issues that you're supporting when you've been a product of them yourself, right?
Right.
But I want to know what your secret sauce is, Jeffrey, and how you connect with all those different stakeholders. Talk to us first about who those folks are, and then what is unique about you that allows you to engage them to support your organization.
Oh, we have a wealth of stakeholders for everybody from our scholars, of course, to our parents, college partners,
Mm,
funders, our board, corporate partners. I mean, if you think about volunteers, mentors, all of these people,
yeah.
and it's immense the number of people that we're communicating with, that I'm communicating with. I mean, we actually have a slide that says by the numbers, and it's 7,500 scholars times their families. It's
You
160
got
college,
right.
it's 130 corporate. Like, you see this slide and you see these numbers, and it just speaks to, I think, the specialness of the program and how folks have felt so connected to wanting to support young people's journey into college, but also
Yeah.
the amount of work that it takes to communicate effectively with all of them. I
Mhm.
have a background in marketing as part of my journey into this work. I was a salesperson for a long time. It's helped me be, really kind of clear on my style and strategy of how I communicate, not as much about the tactical components of it, but really how I bring people in. We
Mhm.
use a
The
lot.
vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So much inclusive, human-centered design, right? Like, in everything that's built in the organization, the voice of the stakeholder lives within it. So our scholars
Mhm.
are communicated with, but also we ask them about every aspect of our program, things that we build, things that we can improve upon. Our parents and family community are brought in as well. We've had to think about that in terms of the students, and we serve in the community with, like, multilingual support, right? So not just
Mm.
being able to communicate effectively, but also being thorough about our communications with our families who use English or have English as a second language. Our corporate partners, that has been one that's been interesting, right? The last 5 years, I've been CEO a little over 5 years now. That has changed and taken shape in so many different ways. Initially, after George Floyd's murder, there was a heightened awareness and a call for diversity, equity, inclusion. And because our students are 93% Black and Brown, we became a central focal point of support, where organizations wanted to come to us and find and hire.
Mm.
Obviously, a lot of that's changed in the last 18 months with some of the attacks on DEI and where we're headed. And
Yeah.
our narrative and messaging had to shift as well, too, because while we are an organization, we're in Chicago, it's almost impossible not to serve Black and Brown. We do serve all kids. We're not, restricted to one particular type of demographic. And so as we've had to shift our not what we do, but really how we communicate and talk about the work, right? To,
Mhm.
have dialogue around this that is clear about who we are. We serve kids from all 77 neighborhoods. Our style shifted to make sure that we are addressing and speaking to the market and where we land in the market. And that's been an interesting shift as well. And even more recently, where early career has shifted again, right? AI is here. Um,
Yeah.
it is changed the market as much as we want to talk about it, we have to again be very thoughtful about how we're talking about our young people and talking to them. And so every time, I mean, like every year, I feel like I'm having to rethink our strategy, rethink how we talk about the work, how we do narrative and storytelling. What does that
Yeah.
look like to make sure that we are still talking about the unique identities of our young people and very proud of that, but doing it in a way that A, protects them and their families, right? But also communicates who they are and the value that they bring to the market that they're going to walk into.
Yeah. You said earlier that you get feedback from the scholars themselves and from their families. Can you talk a little specifically about how you gather that information, how you connect with them?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to do that in a few different ways. Some of just like the baseline stuff. There's surveys and there's open forums that we have. We actually
Mm,
host town halls for our college partners and our families. So we actually
I
bring them in
love it.
and do a
Yeah.
college partner town hall. We actually have a separate college partner advisory board. That advisory spends time and they sit in community with one another, but also us. We bring them out for special events. Next week, we actually have our cocktails and conversation event, which is all about the college partners.
Mm,
Right now,
yeah.
with the shifts in their work too, and some of the narrative change around the value proposition around college, we're listening to them. We want to
Yeah.
hear from them. Our students, we actually have opportunities for students to be part of feedback loops through our college ambassador program, our peer mentor program. So our young people sit at the table with us, and
I
we bring
love
them
that.
in. We have an alumni leadership association. We have during we do during
That's so cool. Yeah.
our annual retreat, they come in and we every year since I've been here, we've done empathy interviews using a human-centered design process.
Mm,
We address a big
yeah.
organizational question and we listen to the kids and then we co-design with them solutions or ideas around solving those problems. And so there are
Whoa.
points like that all throughout the org where we're constantly listening and improving on what we
That's
do.
very cool. You know, um, there's I wanted to talk to you about this as well. And I know we're talking about communications, and this is connected as well, but I there's so much conversation around, the value proposition of college.
Yeah.
And I know that, I know how I feel about it personally. I come from a background in a community, Black folks, where, that's the way you get ahead, that you gotta get the education, you gotta do the thing. And, I find that, that there's a certain amount of privilege behind the idea that you don't need a college education in today's America. But I'm curious how you're framing that, with a generation of students who do believe that, that I don't need to go to college to get ahead. I'm curious if you're even hearing that from kids in from the scholars that you work with, as well. Well, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a rising tide of narratives around college, around early career. And while I am one that knows
And the cost,
and the
right?
cost
Yeah. Yeah.
believes that you can be successful without college, wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
Right? We know many
Mhm.
examples of that. It is still no better way in this country to move someone out of poverty. You mentioned the key word in that. It's like a area of privilege often to be able to say, well, you don't need school. And for some, they don't. I mean, if you've got a trust fund and you can go get certifications and different things, you can do a bunch of things. You can even, take pathways to be, everybody can't be an influencer, but that is a lucrative career for so many young people now. Um,
Yeah.
there are opportunities there and opportunities are afoot. And I think one of the things that we really, lean into is saying for young people with like that academically ambitious nature, 3.0 or better,
Mhm.
you really do and have the opportunity to go to school with as little debt as possible. Let us help you get there because at the end of the day, the one thing that they cannot take away from you beyond the paper, the degree is important, but it's that social capital you build through a college
Yeah.
education that it's
Ooh, that's true. Yeah.
near impossible to replace, right? You can't
Yeah.
find in the same way a community of folks of shared learning and experience all there with you and around you to be your future community of builders, right? Whether you're building a company and building customers or building a social service organization, like that community is so invaluable. And so that is actually what we talk a lot about our kids, what they're getting out of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm just glad it was.
Speak,
I thought it was me. I'm like, is that my
oh
phone?
my God. Speaking of college age students, this is my son calling me from his hotel room down the way. And I know, anyway, sorry.
I love it.
He's
No,
worried about breakfast.
and that's the important thing. That's the important thing. And you're right. I mean, it's funny because it is so much. As you think about our kids and the young people we work with, like they are thinking about their futures. They're thinking about sustaining themselves and how do they do that. And so we work very diligently to make sure that they understand the options that are for them. Now at the same time, we built a for-profit spin out outside of Chicago Scholars called Reach Pathways, which is basically an AI powered version of the Chicago Scholars curriculum that students can do on their own. They can do it anywhere.
Ah,
But
uh-huh,
in
uh-huh.
that tool, because we recognize that a kid who may be in a rural community in Arkansas or on the north side of St. Louis, and they get access to this tool and they want to explore the pathways that are available for them, we've built other pathways in the tool. And we are very clear about the fact that if you want to be an engineer or you want to be a doctor, here's the pathway that you have to go. And that does require university. If you want to
Yeah.
be and own your business and you want to start a construction company, or there's other pathways, and our tool will then help them navigate that to explore all their options. Because one of the things, oftentimes, especially for kids who come from under-resourced backgrounds, they don't know all of the paths that exist for them. And so what our tool is designed to do is do just that. Again, we still believe that if you have high aptitude, you're academically ambitious, you should go to school, especially be within the fact that you can do that for almost little to no debt. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
However,
What, tell me the name of the AI powered platform again?
Reach Pathways is the name of the tool.
Reach Pathways.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's actually what I was talking about when we met during Miami Art Week. I was sharing a little bit about
That's
that
right. Yeah.
journey and how we built the tool, how we took our curriculum, how we funded the tool. That came out of that conversation and narrative, because we were sharing how nonprofits and social impact should think about earned revenue models. We actually have a revenue model
Mm.
that
Yeah.
we use to.
Diversified revenue is a huge issue with
That's it.
nonprofit organizations.
That's it.
And I'm actually sitting in a very rural area of Tennessee right now. So, and my mother's from this very rural area as well. Tools like that I know are invaluable for communities like this.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna switch gears a bit. I want to hear about any challenges you faced with communications as a leader, whether internally or externally. What's been one of the most prominent that you can think of, and how did you handle that?
Man, leading an org through COVID, K-shaped recovery, all of the many hurdles the last few years have been quite a few. One that,
Honestly, you just talked about one as well, needing to change up the narrative about the way you talk about your work,
yeah,
right?
and I was going to go back to that one as one that's like a ever evolving challenge.
Yeah,
I mean, more now than ever before. There, last election, the world shifts and changes almost overnight, and it goes from being able to talk about your work in one way that you're very proud to share and talk about, and those words actually being words sought out in search to that can be
yeah,
harmful for you.
yeah.
And that was an interesting time. We were also going through strategic planning at the same time, and so
Mhm.
it was a time to look at our mission and vision, to look at our narrative, to look at our website, our content, to make sure that we're protecting our students and that we're protecting our partners as well.
Yeah,
Colleges came under attack instantly, right? There was all of this shift around funding and whether or not colleges were using race in terms of their admissions, and that being struck down at the Supreme Court level. And so we got phone calls from partners asking whether or not we did the same, because they were worried that as a through line, if we were working with them, they could put them at some organizational risk.
yeah,
We didn't, but we had to communicate that. We had to figure out, how do we say this to say we're absolutely proud of who our students are. And again, to be in and of and from Chicago, yeah, young people are going to be largely Black, brown, diverse, that's who our low income and first generation in the city, unfortunately, that's the history of the city. And yeah,
Right.
that's who they are. However, we do have everybody in our program, and that is a calm strategy that we got help with. I didn't take that on under my own guys, that we actually brought in consultants. We had board members who have expertise in that help. And I found that it was really helpful in us really shaping how we talk about the work, the narrative, to make sure that we retain the pride in who our young people are, but also, again, that we're protecting who they are as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to say it's still a little infuriating to me that nonprofits have to choose in this way, but, the fact that you met the moment and that you were able to shift the narrative, I think just speaks volumes about the kind of organization you are. Because there's a certain amount of, I'm losing my words now, a certain amount of, like, power and conviction that you have to have behind the work that you do, even as you meet that moment, and I'm hearing that even in what you're saying, Jeff, that you take pride in the students that you're serving, but you're also serving, a wider breadth and type of student. Not type of student, but like race of students, just to call it plain what it is. So yeah, that's a huge challenge. Tell me about is there a platform or a communications vehicle you use that allows you to communicate most effectively with the people who are important to the success of Chicago scholars? Is it face-to-face meetings? You talked about your partners, college, corporate, all of them. What is it that works for you as CEO? Some folks have said they like text messages. They like, I'm curious what the most successful vehicle is for you
That's a
that
great question. That's an amazing question, actually. For me, I do believe it's my ability to be in front of people,
For,
um,
face to face
face to
or
face. I just
ah,
think that's my strongest vehicle. Um,
mhm,
I know since I was a kid, my grandfather always said I had an ability to move rooms with words. I didn't
you
know what that
do.
meant when I
He
was young.
was right. He
Uh,
was right.
I'm humbled by that. That is a great mantle to have, and it has been something that I found to be like my biggest asset. And so I do seek to create those spaces with the organization. We use multiple frameworks that we built to bring people in. So our career partner breakfast brings career partners in, and we have a massive event we do called the On-Site College and Admissions Forum. Every
Mhm,
year in October, we bring all of our kids. That this year, that'll be about 750 students,
mhm.
100 college partners, parents, families, and all of our stakeholders in for a day where kids are actually interviewing for admission to school. And on that day, I get FaceTime with all of our scholars. I get on
Wow.
stage and speak to all of our college partners, all of our parents. And that's just been one of the best ways in which I can get time to share where we're going, where we're headed as an organization, what's the strategy forward, but also calls to action for those same groups as well. And so those have
Mm.
been really powerful ways in which I've been able to disseminate my messaging and what I need us to do as an organization. I think that also has trickled down into like what you see come out or produced by me and my team too as well. Our email newsletters, we've done podcasts, we've tried to figure
Mm.
out how many ways that we can get voice, or at least my voice, into the work to touch
Yeah,
and inspire the communities that we're working with.
yeah. Do you have other, leaders in your organization that also speak on behalf of Chicago scholars, who, I'm thinking in terms of, like, succession planning, not that I'm kicking you out or anything, but, we gotta build up.
It is
Um,
amazing you asked that. We actually just did on Monday. I brought my executive team in, and we did a succession. I led a succession planning day. Like we went and spent 4 hours on what happens in an emergency case when one of us are out. What happens if one of us leave?
yeah,
Who steps in? And I do have others that I've empowered to speak on behalf of the org, my entire executive team, but not just there, doesn't live just there. We have staff members almost at every level who go out and speak on behalf of the organization. And so I'm really
love it.
fortunate to have some strong voices. We have quite a few alumni working for the organization. We are
Oh, wow.
and they're the best voice to go
Yeah.
speak on behalf of the organization because they're the manifestation of the work come true.
That's really powerful. I think it's so important. Like there's so many people who own the brand and who should be able to speak effectively about the brand. And also just as a leader, you know, you get tired, you know,
Absolutely,
and you
absolutely.
need to get tired and you need to have that kind of support in your organization. It's
Yes.
very important. You are a powerful figurehead for the organization, a powerful figure in the organization to speak on behalf of them. I just love that you are also training up your executive team and your leaders, and that other folks are able to speak on behalf of the organization.
Mm.
Okay, so I love asking this last question, Jeffrey. If you could wave a magic wand and the world were as perfect as it could be, what would you want the world to understand most deeply about you or about Chicago scholars? You can choose.
I'm gonna weave them both in because I think that the thing that I want the world to know is consistent across both. You know, it is a simple fact that talent is ubiquitous and opportunity is not. And
Mhm.
if we knew that and we leaned into that more, it would change how not only we invested in the communities that we're part of, the communities that are under resourced, it would change how we also saw those communities too.
Yeah,
You know, there's narratives that have been cast upon Chicago, upon the south and west sides of this city, you know, because of messaging that's been out there around violence and the way the city is structured. And if you walk on the south side in the neighborhood I live in, you see families and parks and people try to pursue happiness in their own unique ways. And that's something that I think is often missed because we quickly put narrative based on zip code. We filter and sort individuals based on where they come from. We attach a level of belief in their ability to achieve based on the name, the number, the background, the zip, the school they went to. And what I
yeah,
found in both myself and Chicago Scholars is that that's not true. We break the mold at every turn. Our young people are amazing. Me sitting here is a true testament of what's possible when belief is met with opportunity, hard work, and doors of access. And so that's literally what I'd want the world to understand and do is if you have an opportunity to crack a door for somebody else from a background that may be different than yours, and one that you may not have all the answers to, you should do that. You should sit with them,
yeah.
you should learn from them. You might find an amazing gem sitting right in front of you.
Yeah. If we could just be open to the breadth of talent that we have that's sitting in every corner of this country, it would absolutely be amazing. I've got family in Chicago, and I was just there late last year, walking those same streets on the south side, and you know, the narrative that we hear in the news or that we see or read about is so rarely the truth, the accuracy of what's happening in the world. So I love that that's what you want the world to know most deeply. And I thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful. You are such a gift, and this has just it's been a real honor and a pleasure to talk to you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.